A-T. It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. We will be talking a little bit about ministering to youth and maybe some changes over the generations of our 20 plus years of ministry. But we won't dwell on that number too long, and we'll get to that discussion right after these important messages. This episode of the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast is presented by Faulkner University. Faulkner University is a private Christian liberal arts university based in Montgomery, Alabama, with a mission to provide an education anchored by not only intellect but also character and service. The Faulkner experience aims to educate the whole person. Every individual matters every day. We all want to become better versions of ourselves. No one wants to remain trapped where they are because of missed opportunities and unrealized dreams. At Faulkner University, we believe your dreams don't have an expiration date. We understand that you're looking for more than a degree. You want to find your niche and thrive in your career. Whether you're a high school senior just beginning your trek or an adult student looking for a better path, Faulkner is here to help guide your journey. Go to faulkner.edu to apply or get more info. That's faulkner.edu. I'm Travis Creasy. That's all-pro counselor with 3-Chord Counseling Shows. Ben Hayes, how you doing, man?
I am good. I am tired. We are in the middle of M2Y weekend, and thankfully didn't have to drive 5 or 6 hours to get there like we've done the last couple of weekends with a couple of different youth rallies that we've gotten to do over the course of this month.
Wow.
But
yeah.
it's been a wild one. But I'm tired. Got a wedding I've got to do this weekend too, so it's fun. It's gonna be fun.
Ministry never stops,
it
man.
never stops. I was telling the wedding coordinator yesterday. I said it's like one of those movies, kind of like either Spider-Man. I think it's A Long Way from Home, or whatever, the one where they're supposed to be. Or no, the one in Washington D.C. And so where they're, he's trying to be in this this thing, spelling bee or math competition or something, and save the world at the same time. And then, for the other side of the coin, the High School Musical people, where you're trying to play a basketball game and do the same thing. So they just all hate on each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it felt like this weekend. I'm going back and forth from M2Y to a wedding, and I'm afraid I'm going to show up at the wrong thing at the wrong time. And, there's going to be that weird deal. Yeah. And so I'm just hoping I don't forget something tomorrow when it's go time for the wedding.
Is this 3 straight weekends for you and I?
Yes.
If not 4? I think
three with Faulkner in between during the week. So we went
Faulkner, Erupt, Faulkner, North Bradley.
Yeah.
And then this weekend.
That's right.
So, yeah.
It's been wild.
Pray for Ben.
Tuesday we get to do some stuff for Christian Student Center. It's going to be like 4 straight weeks of
when this comes out, we'll be probably getting whatever we're going to do together. But that's just kind of how it rolls. And to be honest, as tired as we are, it's been great.
It's been awesome.
I don't know that we could do it all the time. Shout out to the Jenkins Institute.
Yeah,
because
for real.
they do.
Shameless plug. They go all the time.
Yeah. But nonetheless, we're here going to talk a little bit about youth ministry. As I mentioned, we've got several years into this thing, and to some degree, I feel as lost or more lost than when I began. It all kind of jumbles together, but just thinking of some things, maybe from a mental health, but also ministering to youth mental health. Maybe some things that you've seen over your time, either as youth minister, counselor, pulpit minister / counselor. I think one of the things that I can say, just from outside of, more of the youth ministry thing is the idea of anxiety. I don't think that was a word that we really knew of. It was a biblical term, right? It was anxious, be anxious for nothing. Maybe we were considering that.
The word's been around, but the fact that everybody seems to be dealing with it, I don't think has been. And I think, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. We live in a much more fast-paced society on some level than has ever been. Like you and I traveling to McMinnville, to Cleveland, to Montgomery, and back to here to Florence in, a matter of 3 weeks, would have been very difficult at one day in time, expensive and everything else. But then not only that, you have access to so much now at your fingertips. You can find stories, or just looking at a story of something that happened here that, it just pops up on my phone and you go, wow, I didn't realize that was the details of those stories. And you read those things and you see those things, and, images of people getting hurt. The hockey game the other day of some guy getting killed in a hockey game, and it's all over the internet. And you just little things that I think growing up we'd hear about some stuff, and every now and then you'd see it if you watch the nightly news, but it just pops up. It's constant. And then you have a whole generation right now that was, in lockdown for a month or two or three, and life was put on hold. And, some of those kids have graduated. Some of those kids were in their senior year, and so it messed up a lot of things. Some of those kids were, not even school age yet, so their brain's still developing. And I think, COVID and some of those things have had a big impact on it too. So there's a cocktail of things that result in people having a lot of anxiety these days.
This episode of Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis is brought to you by Daisy's Place. In 2003, little Daisy was fighting for her life. Each time she went into ICU, Carolyn, her mom, had no place to put her things or rest. Do you have a story like mine? When your loved one is in the hospital, the last thing you need to worry about is a place to rest. Daisy's Place is a free place to stay in Florence, Alabama, while your loved ones need you the most. Daisy's Place needs you. Share your gifts as a volunteer, spread the word, donate, and sponsor to help serve others in their time of need. Go to daisysplace.org. That's DAISYS-PLACE.org. Or give Carolyn a call at 256-629-6729. That's 256-629-6729.
Coming out of y'all, for the conference, tonight we had a idea lab.
Yeah.
And almost every question in the group that I was in involved connection.
Mm-hmm.
And Faulkner had the leadership thing that was Leaders Connect, and then
Mm-hmm.
for the lectureship it was reconnecting. And I think that's such a big deal. You and I both grew up going to Jacksonburg Church of Christ, and we rubbed elbows with people that were older than us. We conversated with them. Part of that was because it was a smaller congregation. Those are some of the most impactful circumstances, impactful conversations, impactful interactions,
relationships
that I ever had. And I think that that's one thing that keeps getting brought up in conferences like this, or is the connection, right? There are so many things. We're connected to the world, but
not all.
Being connected to the world doesn't necessarily translate to being connected to the person sitting next to me.
Right. That's
and
right.
you talk a lot about something called attunement.
Yeah.
And I have difficulty being attuned to the kids in my own home, much less people at church
Everybody
that I might
else,
see two or three times a week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and like this conference, even this theme this year is to this day, and it's the story of kind of the phrase is used first in the book of Joshua, where they set up the monuments as after they cross the river, and it makes the comment, and whoever when they're writing Joshua says, to this day those stones are still there. It's kind of they're a reminder of what we're supposed to be doing. And so even this week, we're talking about youth ministry from the standpoint of what kind of legacy are you leaving? What kind of heritage are you leaving? Will people look back and go, hey, we saw their faith, and to this day, that faith still speaks to us. So we talk about those kind of connections. And I think the more, it's hard sometimes to connect across generations. It's hard for parents sometimes to connect with their kids. It's hard sometimes for the older people to connect with the younger. But the more connections you build, I think the statistics would indicate the more connections that you build, the more likely that you're going to remain faithful and have an easier time remaining faithful. because we need each other. We were meant to be that way. And you think about how the church was in Acts chapter 2, and they were all one, and they were sharing together these weekends like M2Y, like Erupt, like the North Bradley's Youth Rally. Those different things are such a benefit because we interact and we interconnect and we have that time together. And so attunement can be something that we have all the time, in the church. And I mentioned in our group earlier when we were discussing this that just getting on people's level, it means the world to these kids, to these little kids at church. If you kneel down and you talk to them eye to eye, not as I'm an adult looking down on you. And there's different people who say different things about those, about that. But my opinion, I get down on that level and I create relationships with people. And once you've created that, there's trust. And when there's trust, they can talk to you and they can feel like they can come to you. And this weekend I'm doing a wedding for somebody who was in my youth group. I was talking to her brother who was in my youth group when I first came many years ago. Like you're talking about, we've been in this a long time ago. But, why do people ask? I mean, I would hope that part of the reason why they ask you to do a wedding is because there's a connection with you, and I didn't do those things perfectly, but hopefully there's some sort of connection there. So.
Yeah. So the key to me is effort. I think some of the issues is we don't make an effort. Our society, the world, Satan wants to judge you on your worst day.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our connection problems is maybe there's a lack of effort. Well, I don't think they want to talk to me, so I'm going to use that as an excuse. I use that word, excuse, to not talk to them.
Yeah.
And I would much rather see the effort and be rejected multiple times if there's a possibility there's going to be a breakthrough. I think of Jesus, right? Like the effort that God has put into this, as though he sweats or, burns energy like us.
Yeah.
That's not the case, but he sees something in us and he wants to connect.
Yeah.
The woman at the well, he goes out of the way to connect and be in that circumstance to reach out to her. And so there's an aspect of being a follower of Jesus that values connection, and that should be of a highest priority, whether that's getting on a knee or, in Jesus' case, washing feet or going and talking to someone that no one else will talk to. And so I think it's easy to find excuses as to why we shouldn't do this or do that. But really, it's kind of an effort thing. I think that if you show the willingness that even the most difficult of people begins to go, okay, they're at least annoying me to no end. I guess the least I could do is give them a little something in return. But just showing that effort and the want to and the desire to connect can be such a game changer. I'm around kids all day at Riverside, and it'd be really easy to be like any other situation and go about my business. I had a situation today where a kid had said something that I needed to address. I'm the fourth grader.
Yeah.
And I just went and sat down with him at the table during break and was like, just kind of asking questions, trying not to put him on the spot. And you could tell that no one had ever taken the time. I won't say no one, but not a lot of people took the time to ask those questions. And it was like, here's this kid that I see every day that I say hello and good morning to, but I don't really ever dig deeper because there is such an onus on minding your own business. But we're kind of called in the church to be a little nosy.
Well, and I was thinking as you're talking about that, how many of the stories in the Bible are about connections? Just from the beginning, couldn't find a helper suitable for Adam. What did he do? Created woman to be connected, and to have that relationship with. And then, you work yourself up to Elijah when he's, up on the mountain after this great battle of the mines and of the sacrifices. The next chapter, 1 Kings chapter 19, he goes off to the mountains by himself because he's had enough. It's enough, oh Lord. And he's kind of ready to quit. And God appears to him, which is a great connection, but he says, go back. There's still this many who haven't bowed their knee, and there's this king I want you to anoint, and this prophet I want you to anoint, and this priest, and he goes through all these different things. And one of the things, the prophet he wants him to go to is Elisha. I'm giving you Elisha. And it's this connection for the rest of Elijah's life. Elisha's going to be right there by his side helping him. Jesus got the apostles. Different prophets had, even, Jeremiah didn't have a whole lot of people who listened to him, but there was a couple of those guys listed that kind of followed along with him. Jesus had some disciples that followed along with them. Paul had, Titus and Luke and Timothy and different guys. So it's like the whole Bible is about make connections with people. Those connections not only, allow you to grow and allow them to grow, they also help you in those difficult moments. They encourage you in your faith, and then they carry on the task.
Yeah,
and so there's so many benefits.
We do have a lot of people, and I'm not saying you're an outside person. Hunting season's a big time for you, and you connect with God through that. And certainly there are times for that, but I don't know that you can really get the deep connection with God without connecting with people.
He didn't intend it.
Yeah, he didn't intend us to be that way, and so a lot of people use that as an excuse as to not be a part of a church.
But
I connect with God out here.
Be communal.
He made us relational, and so I just think about the New Testament, and this has been going around in my mind. The New Testament fellowship meal. It's just something we assume as a church, but think about the first century. I mean, you've got Gentiles and Jews. You've got women with new roles and new place in society, children, slaves, masters, all those. And you go into one of those and you come out of that culture, and just the fellowship meal alone is connection and countercultural. And it's like you have to make a decision. You walk in on one of those, it's like, am I really about this or am I not? And we see Paul take it very seriously with Peter about who Peter ate with and who he connected with and what that looked like. And so I think somebody has to break the ice, right? The onus is on somebody. And I mean, the kids are kids. They're we'll give them a little pass for not being the mature one in the situation. Right. And so even at the cost of being annoying or maybe chasing someone off, I think that it's kind of a biblical thing that we connect with them and we make the effort. And at the very least, they can't say, well, they didn't try.
Right. Exactly. And that's so much truth to that, and needing to connect and wanting to connect and wanting to form those relationships, because the church that was the whole reason he gave us that. He never intended us to be, on our own. He wanted us to connect. He wanted the church to be the place that through the church he's glorified, but through the church we're encouraged. We speak to one another. In the songs that we sing, we, don't forsake the assembly was not to say you don't skip church. It was, the whole context of that passage is about encouraging one another.
Don't skip the blessing.
Stimulating one another to good works.
Of being pushed to,
it's
good works.
About that helping you. So there was always a push. Basically, God says, I'm not going to be there physically among you right now. So I'm giving you a people, a body to be with you. And, that body of Christians is there to encourage you. So, I want to encourage you, if you listen to the podcast and you are not a part of the church, not every church is perfect because it's made of people. Let me restate that. No church is perfect because it's made of people. And so there's a good chance you've been hurt at some point by someone at church, at a local congregation. But not every local congregation is the same, and not every time is going to be the same. And so I would encourage you to know there's a body of people there somewhere near you that loves you, will love you, and will encourage you in your faith. And so I would just say that's a challenge because there's going to be people you're going to work some places that you love the coworkers. You're going to work some places where you don't, you struggle with them. Ball teams, you got some crazy fans like Travis, and you have normal fans like me. I mean, whatever you got people who are on anything that we're a part of, and so there's no perfect group of people, even sometimes the church, but we strive to be as encouraging as helpful as we can. Do we miss the mark? Yeah. But
yeah, and to your point, you can't counsel. Like this podcast can't be your counselor, right? We try to help. We give tidbits. We try to be practical. But Ben really can't counsel you through this podcast, and so we encourage you to find somebody who can help you in that capacity, one-on-one in a private situation. If you're having struggles, or even if you're not having struggles, you need somebody that you can bounce that off of. Yeah. It's the same way. Like we can't minister. We can do some things through a podcast, but we don't know your specific needs, and so you need a personal minister and a personal body that there's accountability, but there's also a blessing and an opportunity there to serve. And I would say for youth, for any member, for any human being, service is such a huge part of, I think, overcoming anxiety, to be honest. Being a member of church, seeing people, I use the phrase, suffer well. There's suffering in life. And so just so many benefits. I want to tell you, and of course the board of M2Y, how much we appreciate you giving this weekend and giving youth ministers, deacons, youth elders, preachers opportunities to kind of get together, connect, and see what works for them, see what might could work at their home congregations. It's just a great thing. I'm glad to be here for my second year in attendance. I spoke a few years back, and now that football's not on the table anymore, it makes it a little easier to get here. But thank you guys. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk at you again soon.
Thank y'all.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.